Hi everyone, I'm Kailey Diedrick, the Global Records Manager for the WSSA, and I've got Aaron with me, who's also from the WSSA. Say hi, Aaron.
Hello.
We're going to look at a few relay videos, and we're going to show you the process of what we look at during video review.
And we're assuming that you're already familiar with the basic rules, so we're going to gloss over things like whether or not the cups are on the mat or performing the stack correctly. Instead, we're going to focus on the most common mistakes that we see from top stackers. Okay, let's look at the first one.
Okay, so this first video, we're going to run through it from start to finish. The attempt that we're going to look at is actually the first attempt, so I'm just going to get to where we start. Team's getting ready. Okay, so let's slow things down a little bit right here. Let's take a look at his start. So I'm going to go a few frames. I'm going to go back here. Now we're looking to see if any contact is with the cups. And now I see he's got his right wrist lifted, and there is no contact with the cups, so we've got a clean start. So now we're just going to go through the stack, and he keeps releasing in between. It's looking good. Good on the stacking. Now, the main thing that we look for in the relays is the foot exchanges, because we often see the foot faults happening here.
And this is our number one scratch across the board is foot faults. It's something like 40% of potential relay records get a foot fault scratch.
Yes, and so here we're looking for 3 points of contact. We want to see that the returning stacker steps on or over the line, and the waiting stacker has both feet behind the line. And we see the foot is down.
Not just behind the line, but on the ground behind the line.
That's right. And so we see contact on the ground from the returning stacker, and both feet are on the ground with the waiting stacker, and they're behind the line. So this is clear.
Now it's important to note here, if we go back to that again, there is a point where the leg crosses the waiting stacker's toe, so you can't see it in that moment, but we of course check for continuity, and as that passes we can tell his foot hasn't moved, and we get a clear shot of both of those feet being on the ground behind the line.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to look at the stacking, and I see there's releasing in between each up stack, and the down stack looks clean to me as well. So here we go with the next foot exchange.
Really keep an eye on that back foot in this one, because he's really up on his toe there. We often see a lot of stackers lean really hard into that release, and sometimes their back foot will lift up just before we see the returning stacker get down.
Yes, so we see the returning stacker has not touched down on the line yet, but we're going to go one more frame, and here we see contact now. So you can see the leg is blocking the first foot, but we're going to keep going a few more frames to see if the foot is down. And it looks like it's down in both the front and the back, and I see that the front foot is behind the start line. So this is a clear foot exchange as well. So we're going to check the up stacking, releases in between them. The down stacking looks clean. And now here's the last foot exchange. We're looking for the 3 points. So he's not down, the returning stacker is not down yet, but now one more frame he is. And I can see both feet from the waiting stacker are behind the line, and they're down on the ground. So this is clear as well.
So we just need to finish up that last stack. If it's clean, we got a clean run.
Yep. Clean up stack, clean down stack, and now let's check the stop. Okay, he's down on the timer, and he's not holding those cups. So that is a good stop, and this run is a clean run. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is all of the stackers in this relay did turn to the outside. They turned right, and that worked really well because you can see the line very clearly here. But you'll notice that if the stackers turn to their left, the start line going this way is blocked by the table. And so if they were to turn that way, we would not have clear view of their foot exchange. So this is just a reminder that if you turn right, you're in the clear. If you turn left, you're kind of risking being blocked by the table.
Because we have to scratch that. If we can't see it, we automatically have to scratch that. We've got to see your foot behind the line there, and a lot of times your foot is completely hidden behind the table going that direction. And that was a pretty recent rule change where we've allowed you to go past the center line for this event, but it's still not a good idea. So best practice, pro tip, go back to the right.
Yes. Okay, so that was a clean run. Now we're going to focus in on a couple of foot exchanges that we see that are scratches, and just the reasons for those scratches. So Let's take a look at this first one. Now, I just want to make a comment real quick here. The start line is actually it's visible all the way through. So the chances of that happening they're kind of slim because it's all about where the tournament director sets it up or whoever's setting up the camera. So the stackers who turn inward towards the table this way, they would be fine, but you just never know. So that's why we always say best practice is to turn out where the line is more visible.
Yeah, it depends on the camera and the tripod they're using, and it's different from tournament to tournament.
Right. Okay, so let's take a look at this first foot exchange here. So again, we're looking for the 3 points of contact. Now the returning stacker's foot is not visible yet, but now it's starting to come into view, and you can see it isn't down yet, but the stacker that's waiting, their foot is already in the air. So this foot is not down, this one's up in the air. This would be a scratch. And this is probably the most common type of foot fault that we see, which is just the waiting stacker lifts too early and starts running too early before the returning stacker touches down on the line.
Well, it's not intuitive. That's the reason you see it, is because the stacker is still behind the line, but because it can be so hard to see with the camera, we require that both feet have to remain on the ground until it's clear that the returning stacker has passed the line.
Yes. Okay, so there's that one. Now let's take a look at another one. It's not as common. We don't see this one as often, but let's take a look at these two stackers here and their foot exchange. So here comes the returning stacker, ready to go down on the line. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit so you can notice where the waiting stacker's foot is. It's behind the line, which is good, and both feet are touching down on the line. But as this returning stacker starts running back, he slides his foot up a little bit right here, and now he's on top of that start line. The waiting stacker cannot be on that line. They have to be behind that line. And so now as the returning stacker steps down on or beyond the line, the waiting stacker's foot is on top of that line, which is a scratch. So best practice for this is don't scoot your foot up all the way up to the line. Keeping it a couple inches back is not going to slow you down at all, but it'll guarantee a clean foot exchange.
Well, that, and make sure you're in a ready position kind of beforehand. The thing is, a lot of people just kind of stand there and lean back, and then as the returning stacker turns around, they kind of get ready and they slide their foot forward as they do that. You know, get in your ready position and double check your toe before you take off.
Right. So let's let him stack, and now we're going to look at one more foot exchange. And here comes the returning stacker, but he ends up running off screen, and we can't see where the foot is or where it lands. And so in these cases, we have to scratch that because we just can't see it, and we need to see all points of contact.
And that one's hard, right? Because you usually say don't turn in towards the table because you may not see the line there. But turning the other way, if you go way out to the side, we also can't see that. You know, turn and make sure you get in pretty close to your teammates. That's always the best bet.
Yeah, just turning in and staying really tight is the best way to go. Otherwise, you may run off screen. You just won't know.
All right, I think that's it for the relay. It's mostly just the foot exchange for this one. Obviously, you have to perform the stack correctly, but we focus in on that in our other videos. So check those out if you're at all, on the fence about knowing how to do that properly.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.